What's up, guys? Today I want to talk a little bit about an article from Operation Sports. This is not a new article, but I'm always looking for whatever information I can get regarding the development of these NASCAR games, and we really haven't heard anything so far about the next game, except for whatever was discussed in that Q&A session back on December 3rd. So I did already do a video on that, but I did miss some details, and apparently Operation Sports, they highlighted what they considered to be some things that did stand out, things that I did kind of miss. Now, everything in the article isn't really relevant, so I am going to gloss through it. Things that I don't really think are important or things that I already did cover, I'll just kind of like skim through it and move on from there. So I printed out the article. It's 2 pages. So as you could see, I'm keeping things very low tech on this channel. So I'm going to go through it. You can easily look this up. You Google Operation Sports 704 Q&A, whatever. You can read it for yourself. But I'm going to gloss through the article, and as I go, I'll tell you what I think. The first thing is, in December, they're going to release the Martinsville Night Race. So this is all about DLC, fixing the Sonoma track AI issue with some bugs, DLC, custom car templates, which I am kind of looking forward to. I mean, I've been screaming about this. They're not pushing out enough customization and paint schemes for the 3 Series. I don't care about these paint schemes. I don't really care about DLC usually. So that's not real news. The next thing is the NASCAR Pro League. Information will be announced soon. I don't understand anything about this Pro League. I couldn't care less. What is 704's involvement in it? Is this something that NASCAR is handling on their end? I don't really know. Don't really care. And I thought that was kind of attached to this esports thing, which they've walked away from. So I don't know what that is. I don't know what involvement the development team has with it. I don't think it's much, but I find it kind of strange that this is still a thing. Whatever. I don't really know enough about it to get into detail about it. I just don't care about it. Then it goes into, there is nothing new to announce at this time for updates to spectator mode with camera angles and lap counts. So nothing new to announce. In other words, somebody asked about this in that Q&A session, and that was their answer, which is more of there's nothing to announce. So nothing new there. Then it goes into, okay, this is interesting. This is the first confirmation of what they are working on for the next game, which I didn't really know in my last video. It says the team feels very strongly that a true day-to-night progression will occur in the next title. Okay. So, reading this is actual confirmation that they are working on that. How do I feel about it? I gotta be honest. I don't think this is that important. It's not that I don't want it. It should happen at some point, but they had a hard time with it, so they did it with the stage racing last in NASCAR Heat 4, and they're gonna try to do it as a progression, which is the way it should be. But these are the type of things that I think should go on the back burner. Whenever you read something, which I'll get further into as the article goes along, where they say, well, it's definitely something we're looking into, but down the line. This is one of those things that should be pushed down the line. It's not that important. It's not going to make this game noticeably better, right? I want them to focus on the most important things that will make a big difference now, not later. and they're going to work on this, which they're always reminding you that they're a small team. So how much of their resources and time is this going to take up to make this happen? That kind of stuff raises a red flag for me. I don't want to hear this. To me, yes, this is important, but not that they need to do it now. There are more important things to work on, okay? But this is the first actual thing they're saying, yeah, we're working on this for this game, for the next upcoming game. So some of you I know are going to be excited, but when you think about it, is it really that important? It doesn't affect every race. It's only a handful of races that have day to night transitions. So it's a small, very small part of the game that you're actually going to experience. So because of that, I'm like, okay, yes, someday work on it, but that's not on my list of priorities right now. So that's one thing I didn't know in my last video. Now, this is something that does interest me. They are looking into ways of showing off a trophy room to display races that have been won from previous seasons. Trophies change often, especially in the lower series, so it's harder to keep up with, but discussions are ongoing for the next title. So it's kind of vague, but they're saying they're looking into it for the next game. Trophy room, stuff like that. I'm really hoping that it is part of presentation. I hope it's not just something they just slapped on like they've been doing with the stats. The statistics is still a big problem with this series of games. It doesn't have this cohesive attachment to the career. You kind of just have to go find it in a tab, and then even then it's not laid out the way it should be. I don't want to make this video any longer than it already is. So, but it is interesting. They're looking into it. They've been hearing from the community on this, and they're responding. So that is somewhat positive. Again, it's not on my top list of priorities, but I look forward a little more to this than, day to night transitions. Then the next thing, it says, okay, this is, as I kind of had a feeling, and this is where I really am disappointed. The team is looking into adding a paint booth, but it might be a little further down the line. We're not getting a paint booth in the next game. It's good that they are definitely aware that the community really wants a paint booth. We want more customization, but it's not coming in the next game, and they're just continue to say it's down the line. This really pisses me off because this is the same thing they said after the first game. They said, yeah, we're aware people want a paint booth, and we're looking to see if we can add it in a future iteration of the game down the line. We've been hearing this for years. So once again, this is their comment on paint booth. So they're not working on that. They're not planning to implement it in the next game. I don't understand what is so damn hard about implementing a paint booth. Every video game, including non-sports titles, has some form of customization. The customization that's there now doesn't go deep enough. And I've said before, if they went really deep with what's already in the game, I could wait for a paint booth. Okay? I don't have a problem with that, but they haven't really gone that deep with this paint booth. With this customization. Not really a paint booth, but there's nowhere near enough templates, and the templates that are there, a lot of them are very repetitive, and they are very shallow. There's only a couple of layers. The fonts they kind of threw in. You could tell it was a last-minute afterthought, and it shows. The fonts that are in the game are ugly, most of them. The size is not right. It doesn't fit the car properly. It just doesn't look right. And there's not enough options within the fonts. How hard is it to just make it where you can make two levels of colors where the main part of the number is one color, but the outline is another color? There's a lot of things you could do. Have a font where there's only an outline, and it's just there's so much you can do if you just spent a couple of minutes thinking about it. And it just I'm really disappointed. I know some of you guys out there don't care about a paint booth. You don't care. You don't think it's important. But NASCAR, especially NASCAR, to me is one of the most important games where it comes to customization. NASCAR is known for paint schemes. And it's not enough that these guys are adding all these paint schemes via DLC to make you spend money. I don't care about that. I want to be able to have my own custom schemes that I came up with. And that to me adds a much deeper sense of immersion to the game than DLC paint schemes. The lack of a paint booth in a NASCAR game to me is, I just don't fucking get it. And it just continues to be a problem. And they just keep kicking the ball down the road and saying, yeah, we're looking into it. But further down the line, we've been hearing this now for about 3-4 years. And it continues. So that's a big disappointment. And it pretty much confirms that we're not getting a paint booth this year. And since we're not getting a paint booth, there is no mention about going deeper into what's already there, which is what I said. If you go in there, there's so much you can do to make what the customization now much deeper. Okay, the options to at least be able to paint the wheels any color you want, not just this limited selection that you have. The number fonts, more layers to these templates, and add more templates. It's just a lot you can do, and it's very shallow. So that's a disappointment. Okay, then it goes, more legend drivers could be involved in future iterations. Again, future iterations means who knows when. It could be 3 years down the line, 5 years, who knows. As well as other tracks. It all comes down to licensing, which I've talked about in the past. Licensing continues to be a huge problem. And NASCAR and all these sponsors, trying to get licensing to do certain things, to me, is a big waste of time. And I think it's not a bad idea to just use made-up fantasy drivers and sponsors like we used to see in old games. We don't need everything to be actual licensed things. That's a pain in the ass and a huge waste of time for these developers. Make up stuff just the way we did, you guys did with the Dirt Series. It's all fantasy drivers, made up stuff, made up sponsors. Expand on that. Bring it to the other series. It doesn't have to be all licensed stuff. And it's not affecting the licensed content that's already in the game. You are an add-on to what's already there, so who cares what sponsors you use and all this other stuff. If it's fantasy stuff, doesn't really affect the real sponsors of other drivers and other cars. As long as you don't mess with that stuff, they should have no gripe. And this legend drivers and tracks, yeah, I would love to see that, but to me, that's something else that can wait. It's not as important as at the big black hole that is the NASCAR game development that we've seen in the past, all the way back to Eutechnics. The lack of presentation, the lack of a narrative, the things you see in other sports games. These games continue to be just show up to a track, go, click on a few things in a mobile game type of layout. Click on this, point, click on that, and go back to the next race. Nothing happens in between races, off track. There's nothing going on. That's the biggest issue with these games. And until they address that, and I mean really address it, not just with a couple of things sprinkled in, and it's not gonna, the series of games aren't gonna get to where they're supposed to be. So again, legend drivers and fantasy tracks, yes, that would be cool. But it's not as important as the things I've talked about. Here is something that is interesting. It's not all bad news, but again, it's not coming anytime in the future. Player control cars in pit lane is coming in the future. So they are actively really, I guess, in the planning stages of how they're going to go about this. That is something cool. That is something I would like to see. That is something that I think would get people pumped up. Being able to control the cars all the way through pit cycles and stuff like that. I'd like to see that, but it says most likely not in NASCAR Heat 5. Again, this is further down the line. Disappointing. Don't expect World of Outlaws in NASCAR Heat 5. Again, things people keep asking about that just are not that important, but I mentioned that in my last video. So let's go to the next page. Okay, since the team is small, once again they keep reminding us how small they are. They want us to keep our expectations low. That's not necessarily a terrible thing. You know, the bottom line is, the reality is they are small. So, you know, there's nothing we can say or do to change that. I have been talking about this every year. I keep saying that in order to get the game where it needs to be, you got to hire more people. That's the only way it's going to happen. Now, who is the financing behind 704 Games? I don't know that. I don't know the business end of things. I don't even know how many people are actually sitting and working on these games. Yes, they're a small team. What does that mean? Is it 4 or 5 guys sitting in an office? Is it 10 guys? And that's why they keep piecemealing this thing along and doing baby steps every year. Yes, they've made tangible improvements. Even this year, they didn't really add anything new to this game, but they just went in and they've improved everything that's already there. And for last year, that was the right decision, and it did turn out to be a much better game than NASCAR Heat 3. The racing is really the highlight of the game. The actual on-track gameplay mechanics is a big improvement. The game is fun to play. It's fun to race. The actual racing is good. Yes, there's room for improvement, and they've already said that, yeah, that's a yearly thing. They're going to continue to improve things like the physics and stuff like that, but the game does shine where it matters most. The gameplay, the actual racing is the most important thing, and they have shown an ability to improve that every year. They deserve credit for that, and being a small team, they were smart doing what they did last year. That being said, you can't do that again, right? You get a pass for that. That's not going to work again. This piecemealing every year and doing these incremental steps and just showing, okay, look, this year, the physics are even a little better, and this is a little better, and we polished this a little more. That's not going to work again. This is going to be the 5th game in the series. We're sitting around waiting and waiting and waiting, and the things people have been asking for, like caution replays, paint booth, and presentation, these things are still not being addressed after 4 or 5 years. Now, this stuff's going to start hurting this company, and they're on thin ice. This small team thing is only going to get so far before people say, you know what, why am I still supporting this every year? We're not getting basic features we used to get 15 years ago. So, there's a lot of this stuff that's really negative. There's a couple of positives in here that I did highlight, So, let's just move on from that. All right. Where am I? I'm sorry, guys. I need my glasses, but I don't have them. Okay, the team is small. Don't expect any DLC tracks or stuff like that for NASCAR Heat 4 or 5. When speaking on the All-Star race being added in the future, they need to get rid of all non-points races. No, get all of. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say get rid of. Get all of the non-points races into career mode soon. So it's tough to say if it makes it into Heat 5, but it's a high priority to get all of them, or at least some of them, in. Yes, all-star race, non-points races. Yes, it's important to have that stuff in there, but again, in my opinion, that really going to elevate this game? It's just more of the races we already have. An all-star race, we have already the points races at Charlotte. All right, so now you got an all-star race. Really? Is that going to add a lot to this game? Yes. I'm not saying I don't care if it's in there, but again, that's not on my priority list. These are things that I say I don't care when it comes down the line. It's not that important. It's not going to really elevate this game. I'm looking at the most important stuff that really would elevate this game. This isn't one of them, in my opinion. Things the team would love to add in the future. Driving yourself down pit road and on pace caution laps, which they already mentioned, but it's kind of reiterated here. A good paint booth, a deeper career mode with more of the feel of a race of a Sunday. This excites me. This is what I want to hear. These things. This would elevate the game. But it's vague. And it's in the future. Right? So the first thing the team would love to add in the future, driving yourself down pit road, which they already mentioned. Yes, that would elevate the experience. And on pace and caution laps. So having full control at all times, that would elevate the game. And I really do think that's important. A good paint booth, which I've already talked about. Vital. A deeper career with more of a feel of a race Sunday. I think they typed it wrong, but that sounds to me like presentation, adding a narrative, the things I've been talking about, which is the most important thing missing from these games. And it's good to see that they mentioned that here, but they didn't get into detail, which worries me. Do they understand what this means? What is, in their eyes, a deeper career mode with more of a feel of a Sunday, NASCAR experience? What does that mean? I know what it means to me. I've talked about it. You guys know how I feel about it. But what does it mean to them in detail? I don't know what that means. Because right now, the best they've been able to do is not cutting it. These pre-race, what they call stories, where the cars are in, on the warm-up lap, and you have to read, so and so's back to the back of the line for a pre-race inspection infraction, and so is in violation of, you guys know what I'm talking about. That is what I would consider mobile gaming. It's at that level. It's just not good enough anymore for I don't know if I should call it a AAA license, but the only NASCAR license game. You got to bring more to the table, and we used to get amazing presentation 15 years ago with NASCAR Thunder 2004, and you could hear the commentators talking about going down the lineup during the warm-up lap, from the back all the way to the pole sitter. And we are here reading text. Not good enough. And I like that they're talking about this, and I'm assuming that that's what they mean, things like that. But I don't really know. This is very vague. It's very open to interpretation. And it says it add in the future. It's not coming in the next game. It doesn't sound like it. What are they really working on this year? Other than the day-to-night transition, which was confirmed, I don't know, man. I'm really hoping that I'm wrong, and that they are working on some of this other stuff that I consider more important. So that last one is the most exciting to me. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to see. and I don't know when we're going to see it, but you know that these are the things that would really elevate the game, the series. Then there are discussions to implement an online practice mode for the future title. Building out online makes sense. Okay, online practice. Okay, why can't you just? What is so hard about adding that? Doesn't sound like it's a lot of work to me. Adding a test session in the near future, which I talked about in the last video. Yeah, a test session would be cool. But all a test session really is let's say practice without the AI. Why couldn't they do that already? What is so hard about that? Just adding a practice session with no AI, that's a test session. It's just mind-boggling to me that it's not in the game, and we're already 4 or 5 years into development, and it's still not a part of these games. They're still talking about this here, about adding it in the future. What's so hard about that? I don't get it. I'm not a developer, but it just sounds like something they could do in 2 days if they wanted to. I could be wrong. I'm not a game developer. Due to licensing issues and having a small team, here we go again. Challenging to get historic tracks like Rockingham, North Wilkesboro, etc. in the game, but they're looking to get at least one of them in a future title. Again, yes, I'd like to see this stuff. No, it's not that important. I don't care if it comes down the line. But obviously, they're bringing it up because people keep asking for these things. Everyone should be asking about presentation, a narrative, a fully fleshed out career mode, the way that NBA 2K and these other sports titles, MLB The Show, even Formula One, which I have not played, but from what I've seen online and in YouTube videos, they have the right idea. That's what I want them to model this series after. Those are the things I want to see. This other stuff is just not that important. So let's see. It's a nice little touch, and the team recognizes it. They're looking into adding a burnout option if you win the championship, but don't win the race. Don't care. This is not important. This is really one of the least important things I've read so far. Alright, whatever. If there is a high demand for it, they'll be looking into making NASCAR Heat 5 on the Nintendo Switch. Okay, for those Nintendo Switch guys, they do need, it'd be cool if they get the game as well. Whatever. NASCAR Heat 5 is being worked on, just in case everyone needed clarification. Okay, I talked about that already. That's everything from the article. We know they're working on the game already. They are not really giving much information as far as the next game, other than what they've confirmed. They're working on day-to-night transitions. Cool, but really not that big a deal. I haven't really heard anything that gets me excited about the next game. I hope that changes in the future. I want to know what you guys think. You can just easily Google Operation Sports, and this article came out like a week and a half ago, right after the Q&A session. Go read the article for yourself. Let me know what you think. Do you agree or disagree with my thoughts on this? I don't know, man. I don't know how to feel. There were 2 or 3 things here that got me excited and that I want to hear, but even those things are like down the line. They're very vague. The things that they were more concrete on, like the day to night transitions, stuff like that, I'm just not that excited. Not at all. So hopefully we get more news sometime in the future. And I look forward to your comments. Later.